In exactly the same way that the Holy Prophet ﷺ knew that what God is telling me is the truth. He never stopped preaching. And in the same way, we won't stop preaching.
It's against the teaching of Islam to force anyone into belief, which is la ikraha fi din. There's no compulsion in matters of faith.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته, and welcome to our first semi-final in which Khuddam from Pakistan, Germany, Canada and Ireland will be competing for the two places in the finals. Like in the previous shows, we gave our Khuddam in today's show as well a specific scenario for this week, which was your colleague who is an atheist says to you, society has progressed and everyone knows what is morally right and what is morally wrong. So that's why religion is obsolete. It's not needed and one can live a good moral life without religion. How do you respond? Well, their responses have been uploaded on the MTA website for you as well at home. If you want to go to the website, you can listen and you can vote on those videos. So go to www.mta.tv/face2face, or now that you're here already, might as well just stick around and listen to what the judges have to say about the contestants as well, so you can make an informed decision while casting your vote. Speaking about judges, let's go to our judges first and introduce you to the respective panel of judges. To my far right, Amr Safi Sahib, the editor of the Review of Religions magazine. Assalamu alaikum. To his right, we have Mohammed Zahid Sahib, teacher of Jamia in the UK. And to his right, Qasid Moin Sahib, also the editor of the Al-Hakam magazine. Jazakumullah, gentlemen, and welcome to the semi-finals. Qasid Sahib, so far, what do you think? How has it been?
I think it's been very interesting today. So the semi-finals are starting. We've had 5 shows where we've seen 25 contestants of various aptitudes, different aptitudes. I think it's been a great experience, just as you know in previous shows. But now we really want to see the performances of all the contestants take the next step and up the bar.
On that note, Amr Sahib, I know you always say about going back to Hazur's khutbahs, which is, a perfectly, it's a very helpful thing to do, of course, because all the guidance that we have is from Hazrat Masih Maud and the Khulafa. How much are you going to pinpoint that in this round now?
This show has been going on for how long? 3 years now?
3 years.
3 years. Okay. So for 3 years, I think we've been emphasizing this point, and it's for a reason. The point is that when people go out to the world, they're equipped to have the best answers to convince other people. So it's not like the first program we've said this. We've said this for 3 years now. Throughout the group stages or the initial rounds, we've been saying this. So in this semi-final, we're going to be marking much tighter. We expect the contestants to have taken this feedback, and we'll be looking at that very closely.
All right, Jazakumullah for that. So let's go to our first khadim of the day. Anas Ahmed Saab from Pakistan is with us on the line. Anas Saab, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Anas Saab, first of all, congratulations. You made it to the semi-finals. What are your hopes for the future? Do you think you've taken the advice of the judges on board in preparing your answer for this week?
Yeah, thank you very much. First of all, I think the best part of this is that I was selected in this competition. And honestly, I was having nothing to lose. The best part is that even with some kind of a topic, you go and research with that topic. And obviously, it's related to the contemporary issues. Sometimes we take it as granted that we know everything, but when we go deeply inside those questions, there are a lot of things which we come across and have seen in our life that how well we are in those subjects as well. So I think the best part is that judges are very committed. Every time they used to give very good advice to everyone. And this is the best part of this channel, MT International, no math. And I think this program, this very program, is contributing a lot, actually in general, and in particular, everyone. That's, I think, the best part of this program. So hats off to you all, the whole team, the whole concept behind this project, and it's doing the best. It's my views on that.
All right, so we're going to listen to your reply, the scenario I've mentioned in the beginning that your colleague who's an atheist asked you, because of religion not being obsolete, what's the need of religion? And this is Anisab from Pakistan.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. My dear friend, your claim that nowadays people know what is morally good or bad. So let's stop here and discuss what is morality. Morality basically is a very subjective term. Any idea, any thought which is, by the way, moral to you, it's not necessary that it is also moral to the next person. And again, vice versa, that if anything which is immoral to you, that may not be immoral to the next person, and he feels bad about you because according to him, that's morality. So, this is a very subjective term, and it varies from person to person, nation to nation, country to country, and the culture to culture as well. Now comes to religion. What is religion? Now think about a religious person. It's not his upbringing, it's not his culture, it's not his inner feelings which he has to obey. He has to obey the divine teachings of the Allah Almighty, the creator of this universe. He has to obey that thing. He has to give the true testimony. For example, if he has to give the testimony in any case going on, then he has to give the true testimony. Whether it's the matter of his life or death, that if he gives the right testimony, he may be sentenced to death punishment. Even in that case as well, the religion says that you have to obey the religion and have to give the true testimony. This is religion. Now, religion is having a very, very beautiful teachings which brought a lot of positivities in the society. For instance, if we go back in the history and see when Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam came into the world, the Arabs were having every bad deed in their society you can think about, and that was there in their society. But when the teachings of Islam came, when the revelation from God came, all those beliefs, all the religion was given to the humanity, and those Arabs turned like anything. Those who were having a regular practice of consuming alcohol on daily basis, 5-6 times in a day, when the teachings of Islam came that this should be prohibited, everything was prohibited despite they want that alcohol. So this is the beauty of what we say religion. So religion is over and above the morality, and that's the need of all.
Anisab, religion being over and above morality, that's something that Anisab just mentioned. I would like you to ask him the 60-second question.
Anisab, Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam.
Thank you, Jazakallah, for your answer. What I would like to ask you, for which you'll have 60 seconds, is you gave the example from the life of the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but you did not provide a link between that history and today. So I would like you to provide a clearer link. That it's a very important point you made. It's a fundamental point, giving some example from the life of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But please, can you provide a link to today's society? Because that is what the question is. How can those teachings be implemented today? And how can it benefit the people today who are questioning the need of religion? So you have 60 seconds, which starts now.
Nowadays, the very recent example which I can quote at the moment is if we go back to 2010 May, when there were attacks on two places of worship of MD mosques. So there were a lot of martyrs over there, around 100. And if we talk about the worldly practices, everybody will be saying that you should protest in front of the embassies, you should protest on the TV channels. But what religion tells us, what our Khalifa Abu Bakr told us at that moment was that you have to obey the beautiful teachings of Islam. So that was to have patience and to have, you all have to contact Allah. So we have numerous examples that every time you have to obey uh, the teachings of Islam and should not be rebel.
I'll first start by answering the first part of your question, but also combining the second. We're upping the standard here, as we've said. We're expecting more. So in terms of...
You're commenting, you're not.
Yes.
You're commenting.
I'm commenting. So what I'm saying is that generally in terms of delivery, it was good. You spoke clearly and conviction. In terms of the answer, I would expect a bit more in the sense that recently, if you just take a very recent example, Hazur Anwar went on a tour of Europe. He delivered a landmark address in Berlin. And I hope that other contestants may have referred to it, where he gave the example of the second worldwide head of the community, where he said there's a difference between culture and civilization. Civilization, and also to mention, we mentioned that sometimes the question is a red herring. Has the society really advanced morally? In relation to what Hazur has said in Berlin, there is civilization. Civilization means the technological and material advancement. In that sense, definitely the West has supremely advanced. It has developed infrastructure, technology, roads, all sorts of material progress, which is phenomenal. However, Hadhr Muslim Maud Hazur says that culture is the religious and moral progress, which is how good in terms of your goodness, in terms of your relationship with God. If we separate these two, we clearly see that on one level, there's a material progress, but on the other level, there's a reverse in morality and there's a moral decline. And you would have then brought in the examples of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ and his teachings. For example, how he taught that when you do something good, if someone does something good to you, you do even something more to them. This is something that develops kindness in society. How the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings of Allah be upon him, brought the teachings of loving your neighbor so much that even the person you travel with and your journeyman is a neighbor, and this would create peace in society. How even you should love your enemy. So all these examples should have been differentiated, that there is material progress in the West, but there is not moral progress. And that's why we see many ailments, many wars, many injustices and inequalities in society, because they are only focusing on one strand, and the actual moral strand is not actually being followed. If it was, we would not see the strife that we see and the many layers of problems that we see. So I feel, I gave a recent example because this is something that has been really easily available in the Jamaat everywhere, even in MTA. They could have referred to this and other addresses which Hazur has recently given, where he's directly answered this question.
Yes, Raza Sahib, first of all, I would like to congratulate Anas Sahib for a brilliant answer. I would not say it is an answer which, in terms of arguments, the answer could be improved, but I would give him full marks for his confidence, for his delivery, for his conviction as well. But as Amir Sahib has mentioned, that in terms of argument construction, it could have been a bit better, and more like modern day examples could be given, which actually explain the scenario a bit further. And as we have been reiterating the importance of actually citing from the khutbat or addresses of Hazur, I think this is the key, because if we, for example, one address of Hazrat Khalifatul Masih Khamis Sayyidullah Ta'ala bin Nasr al-Aziz, which I particularly want to mention here, is the concluding address of Hazur Anwar Sayyidullah Ta'ala at UK Jalsa Salana this year, where Hazur exactly answered the same question. And Hazur started his address by actually raising this question that nowadays people generally say in atheistic societies, that religion is a thing which has become obsolete, and it is a concept which is no longer valid or accepted in modern day and age. And then Hazur started answering in many different ways how religion is needed nowadays, and how it is an important phenomenon, how the concept of religion can change lives today. So that address of Hazur had, I think, 30-40 points. And I remember that there was probably Qasid Sahib can tell us more about that there was an article in Al-Hakam after that address of Hazur, in which Hazur actually mentioned that there were about 60 points which he wanted to mention, over 60 points which he wanted to mention in his address. But due to the lack of time, Hazur actually only mentioned about 30 something points. So that was a particularly relevant address which could have been actually very helpful for the contestants for this particular program.
As I said, I would like to give you some moments with Anas Sahib.
Anas Sahib gave a very, I think his answer.
He's still on the line, you can talk
yeah,
to
so
him.
Via Skype, Assalamu alaikum Anas Sahib, I think you gave a very good answer actually. The fact that you immediately came up with the example of the 2010 attacks, that was very interesting that he did that, because that was actually a very good example of how morality within religion was used to the best of its abilities, because without divinely guided leadership that we had at the time, there would have been complete chaos. But through the guidance of Khalifatul Masih at the time, Ahmadis were told what to do, exactly how to respond to it. Many could have just turned up and, done the same at other mosques as well. But what was done by, and practically done by the Ahmadis at the time was to show patience and, through patience and prayer, which is the basic, teaching of the Holy Quran.
The documentary here too.
Sorry?
Nice. The MTA documentary.
MTA documentary as well, exactly. Yes, patience and prayer. But I think Anas Sahib, agreeing with the rest of the judges, if you could basically in the future look into some of the speeches like the judges have said of Hazrat Amir al-Mu'mineen, the literature of the Jamaat, just read up a bit about the subject, because you started off well, I thought. You said that morality is subjective, you went into that, but then I think you gave a few examples which it lost me. I couldn't follow what point exactly you were trying to make. So maybe choose a few precise examples and elaborate on them as much as possible.
Anas Sahib, Jazakallah, thank you very much to you as well for your reply, and let's see, maybe we will get back to you in the end, or maybe we're not, but good luck to you, and thank you very much once again. Qasid Baja Sahib, also from Pakistan, is with us on the line now. Qasid Sahib, Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
Qasid, first of all, congratulations to you as well. If I can ask you, is this like a question that you dealt with a lot lately, or in recent times, or ever?
Yes, I want to share that in Lahore, it is quite a common question. Like there is a much promotion of atheism here in the university students, and they more commonly ask about the existence of God and need of religion, and as evolution is needed in religion, and a lot of, because thereof poor knowledge regarding basic true Islamic teachings, there is a lot of confusion among students.
Okay, well, interesting. Well, good to know. Before we play Qasid Sahib's video, I would like to remind the viewers at home that these are their personal answers. The contestants, the reply that they send us, it does not necessarily reflect and stand for the official viewpoint of the Ahmadiyya Muslim Jamaat. These are their personal viewpoints and their personal answers. So we're going to listen to Qasid Baja Sahib's reply from Pakistan, and then after that, Qasid Sahib from here in the studio will have the honor of asking him the 60-second question. Qasid Baja Sahib from Pakistan, please.
Assalamualaikum. When a mature person like you claims like that, then he must give an example of any single such society that has made some morals, its citizens followed those, and they established a peaceful and progress stable society. I can't see anyone, as every proposal like this must have a precedent. Secondly, with all this foreigners from religion, is there any progress towards righteousness, or a clear devastating decline of morals? With these two burdens, I come to tell you that morals are quite a subjective thing. It varies from person to person, as a powerful person thinks that the solution of heavy oppression is revenge, while weaker one thinks forgiveness is a better option. Similarly, societies varies in establishing morals, and mostly this so-called progress society has manipulated morals. That is evident from the extremes of freedom of speech or misuse of human rights to destabilize governments and states. And humans need uniformity, and this is obvious from the establishment of UNO, and it is not possible. As the second caliph has said, there are 8 to 9 different definitions of right and wrong, even if someone does this sincerely, and it is not possible without divine guidance. And Promised Messiah has said that a true moral is the not mere exercise of natural impulses, but it is progress from nafs al-lawwama to nafs al-mutmainna by the moral development under the guidance of religion. Even if we establish some morals, then it is not possible to practice those without incentive of sacrifice. There is incentive of sacrifice. So it is only religion that tells you the principles that suits you, that are easy to opt, and there is some threat to avoid those, and reward and love to follow those. So even if I agree that you have enough morals that they can be uniform, and you or a few people of society have enough strength of character to abide by those, even then I want to make it clear that even if you have door, you can't claim that you don't need a house to live in, as morals are one of the a lot of purposes of religion. As second caliph of Islam, Ahmadiyya, has described that there are four major purposes of a religion. First of all, it guides to you towards your source, the creator. It guides to help you to make best use of your faculties and abilities. It helps you to interact with the other creation and regarding your social life. So lastly, the life after death. These are the four major purposes that this society is in dire need of, and only a true religion can fulfill those. And this devastating society definitely needs this religion, and it is not possible to survive without that.
Well, that certainly was an intense answer from Qasid Sahib. So, Qasid Sahib, I would like you to ask him the 60-second question,
sure.
please.
Assalamu alaikum, Qasid Sahib.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
Do we have Qasid Sahib on Skype? We do, yes. So, Qasid Sahib, your answer, mashallah, was, it took a lot to focus on that, because, mashallah, there was a lot of information. It was jam-packed with information, and you had a lot of points to make. One point that you made, which I thought was very pertinent, was on the extremes of freedom of speech and misuse of human rights. And in today's society, that is, all around the world, that is quite prevalent in various parts of the world. Could you please elaborate a bit about that and how that links in with today's question?
Yes, I just try to establish that morals are quite subjective, and in fact we use for the misuse those morals or some basic principles for our personal benefits, as we don't make morals uniform or uniform good or equal good for all. Similarly, as some of the morals like freedom of expression and freedom of speech, we think we have used to just give away our anger and aggressiveness or our depression, like we have just mocked the holy people and holy books of the other religions. Like a few days ago, the holy book of Islam was burnt in Norway, and there was a lot of reaction to that. So this way, when we think that the morals are just only for our own personal expression of our anger or whatever our depression or things in our mind are running, but we have to take care of the feelings of all the people of this world.
Jazakallah, Qasid Sahib. I think you made, I understood some of the points that you were making there. They were very pertinent, and that is exactly why I asked you this question, is because, like I said in the beginning, you made so many points, which is very good, but at the same time it can be cumbersome for the listener. What I felt was that you were trying to make, like you said, you've experienced this question before in your, with colleagues or class fellows. So that goes, it showed in your video that you've given a lot of thought to this question. But Qasid Sahib, what I would say is that in future, try and focus on a couple of examples, maybe 3 or 4, and focus on them and try and explain them a bit more. What you did in answer to the question that I just gave or posed to you, that is exactly what I wanted you to do, or what we would have liked to have seen in the video, with some examples about how there are misuses of freedom of speech or human rights in today's world, and morality isn't as perfect as some may think. So this is something that could have improved your answer. Generally, I think you've given it a lot of thought, but like I said, a bit of structure would have been better, and maybe less arguments and more explanation to those arguments would have been a bit better.
Amr Sahib, we've spoken about this in the past. It's about the quality, not so much about the quantity, isn't it?
Yes, I mean, again, I think in terms of I give him respect for the answer he gave. He covered a lot of important topics. I think he spoke perhaps a bit fast at times. He could have slightly slowed down, but it's okay if the person, his colleague, understood him, then we mark him. I think one thing is, again, we sometimes say the question is a red herring, right? And I think this question is asking that they were asking about morals, and we're answering at face value. But we also have to see what is the Islamic teaching. Islam also emphasizes that in terms of morals, there's also a question of belief in God, right? So if this is the question of belief in God, this also answers a question automatically. And I feel our brother and the previous contestant didn't touch on this topic of belief in God, that morals, you can be morally right, but what Islam teaches is that you can whatever good you do, if you are not believing in God, that good will remain in this world. However, a believer, he takes that good to the next world. He believes in an afterlife. And religion is also providing a moral code which is consistent. Whereas in the current times, we are confused about our moral code. People are not sure what morals to follow because, as one of the contestants said, the morals are subjective. So religion, and you see across all religions, they have common moral codes. So for example, to be honest, to be good to your parents, to love thy neighbor, and so on and so forth. Of course, there are differences in religion, but those core moral codes are the same. Without this moral code, which you get from God and from scriptures, revealed divinely, people are confused about morals. They're confused about what is right and wrong. And there is a lot of subjective nature being brought into it, which is actually confusing things and leading to immorality. So I think this is an important point to make as well.
So
I think,
if you allow, we'll move on.
Okay, no worries.
I'm going to come back to you.
Yes.
Apologies.
No worries.
Qasid Jazakumullah Sanza to you as well. And let's see, hopefully, maybe we will see you at the end of the program. Jazakumullah Sanza. Haris Parvez Sahib from Germany is with us on the line. Haris Sahib, assalamu alaikum. Asa, for you, this must be like one of the most asked questions ever, isn't it?
Yeah, sure.
So if we don't see 100 out of 100 score from you, then, you know, we'll talk after. I'm just joking. So we're going to go to Haris Parvez Sahib's answer from Germany first, and then I'm going to give Mohammed Saab the chance to ask you the 60-second question. Haris Parvez Sahib from Germany, please.
There are two ways to answer this question. First, the scientific approach, and secondly, the theological approach. If we take a look at the scientific approach, we see that the fourth Khalifa of the Ahmadiyya Muslim community has mentioned that there are two types of goodness. First, religious goodness, which means a human being does good without being selfish. And secondly, natural goodness, which means a human being does good but is being selfish and where his actions are limited. Yes, society has improved. We have better health conditions, we have better living conditions, but we have to ask ourselves, have we improved morally? If we take a look, for example, at the Western society where atheism is on the rise, we see that the numbers of people who have depressions is increasing. The number of people who have committed suicide and commit suicide is increasing. We have more and more wars, we have more and more inequality. So in this world, who will determine what is morally good and what is morally wrong? Because it is absolutely wrong to assume that everyone knows what is good and what is wrong. And because science itself cannot give an answer to the question of where moral comes from and from where it originates, who will determine in this atheistic world what is morally good and what is morally wrong? For example, if we take a look at Nazi Germany, back then people thought it would be a good thing to go after the Jewish community, and to kill the Jewish people. Was this really morally good? Absolutely not. If it is true that religion is the root cause of all evil, why is it that in today's world, where people are leaving their faith behind, where people are turning their back to religions, and where we are so advanced and have so much progressed, why is it that we have so much intolerance, injustice and inequality and so many conflict and wars? The fact is that atheism gives not a human being his good purpose of life. A human being strives for everlasting peace and he wants to achieve it. Coming to the second way, Allah mentions in Quran that He has sent prophets because they should fight injustice, they should eliminate oppression. And this is exactly what the fifth Khalifa of the Ahmadiyya Muslim community has said in numerous speeches. He said that injustice, wars and conflicts are rising in this world. The promised Messiah, who is the Hakam Adil for this age, who was foretold by by Prophet Muhammad Muhammad. He said that there are two aspects of faith. First aspect is to fulfill the rights of God, and second, to fulfill the rights of His creation. And we can only fulfill the rights of His creation if we have someone who will guide us. In chapter 91, verse 9, Allah mentions in the Holy Quran that He has put in human nature a sense of a feeling for what is good and what is morally wrong. And also the promised Messiah Islam has said the purpose of religion is that it enhances our moral understanding. So if we accept the promised Messiah Islam, we can live a good moral life.
That was Haris Parvez Sahib from Germany. He's with us on the line. Moment Sahib, the 60-second question for Haris Sahib goes to you, please.
Assalamu alaikum, Haris Sahib. How are you?
Alhamdulillah.
Actually, I wanted to ask you 2 or 3 questions, but I would suffice myself to asking you only one question. Haris Sahib, while mentioning the moral decline of the atheistic societies in the West, you simply ignored the decline in the East, which are like the religious, let's say, societies. You did not mention them at all, as if they are totally pure. So is there a reason for that? Can you explain that a bit?
Not at all, because I've focused only on the Western societies, because the question from my colleague is because he is an atheist, and atheism is on the rise more in the Western countries rather than in the Eastern countries. But if we take a look on the hadith, which is mentioned in Mishkat al-Masabi, where the Prophet Muhammad already mentioned, which I mentioned in the last episode, that there will come a time where people will forget the true teachings of Islam, because in the East we have more Muslim countries, and because they have forgotten the true faith, so this means they lack in the understanding of the true faith, so they become immoral. And this is what we are seeing today, that because and also Hazrat Khalifa Muslim Khamis said that Muslim countries nowadays should act upon the true teachings of Islam. If they would act upon the true teachings of Islam, they would be we would say they act morally.
All right, Haris, I think it was a tricky question, but you answered it very well. Well, you mentioned that you were specifically talking to an atheist friend who is from a Western society, and for this reason, you actually talked about the moral decline in Western societies, and I take that to be a good 60-second reply from you. Jazakumullah for your answer.
I'm going to come to you. You look very happy about Haris Sahib's reply because he had the quotes of the Promised Messiah, Islam, the Khulafa, the Holy Quran, and so much more. So
I give him credit. I think I noticed this, that Haris Sahib has taken on board the comments, and he has quoted quite extensively from the Khulafa and from the Promised Messiah. So Haris Sahib, well done for that, and I think I give him credit. I again think he spoke a bit fast, and he covered many points and sometimes brushed over them, and they had to be explained. One point I would like to add for Haris Sahib, and this is also from a concluding address Hazur gave at Jalsa Salana UK, and it's very interesting. Hazur mentioned that there's actually a difference between morality, spirituality, and religion. The 3 different aspects that the second Khalifa has explained, which intertwine. And right now, the problem in the world, East and West, is that there's no balance between these aspects. So for example, in the Eastern societies, what they've done now is they've put everything under Islam and religion, to the extent that every aspect of your life they have to guide and say it's part of religion, whereas this is not the case. Example was given in the life of the Holy Prophet. He was once passing by some group of farmers, and they were planting some seeds, and he just mentioned casually that why do you need to mix it? The wind may pollinate it itself. They took it as a religious instruction. The harvest went down. The next time the Prophet came, he said, what happened? He said, you gave this instruction. He said, no, I was just mentioning it as a comment. You are worldly people, you know these material things better. On the other side, in many of the materialistic societies, they've taken away God completely and said that God and religion has no place at all. So what Hazur says is that Islam provides the perfect balance between morals, spirituality, and religion. So the companions, when they joined, they first believed in God, but they also, some of them were millionaires. They ran businesses, but they ran them with honesty and they ran them properly. And as the Prophet said, your body has a right over you, your wife has a right over you, and your neighbor has a right over you. So Islam provides that perfect balance. Whereas in the world, what's happening right now, they are doing some good things, they are doing some moral things, but what Hazur has explained is that will only remain within those spheres. That benefit, it's like having a higher staircase and lower staircase. They're remaining at the lower staircase, where the person who believes in God is at a higher level. And as it says in the Quran, that the efforts you do in this world will remain behind in this world. So what you have to take over in the next world is that spirituality. Islam provides that perfect balance between what you have to do spiritually and what you have to do morally, and religion falls under that.
Qasab, you can ask questions to Harisab as well. I think to the contestants in general, it's not going to be a 60-second question, but you can
I would snatch a question from Momin Saab, but I don't have any question at the moment. But Haris Saab made an interesting point, in the beginning, which reminded me of there's a common debate whether there is any good that you can do without being selfish. Does everyone do it for their own selfish motive? Does everyone do it to please themselves? But the interesting thing is, we were having a discussion about this just prior to the program. There is a hadith in which the Holy Prophet ﷺ has mentioned that there are 3 reasons a person might want to do good. And one of those reasons, so A, it's to safeguard themselves from the hellfire. B, it is to gain acceptance in paradise. And C is to attain the pleasure of Allah. So the Holy Prophet ﷺ, having explained this, it shows that there are various motives a person can have whilst doing good. And all of them might be good, but the Holy Prophet ﷺ gave preference to the one for which one attains the pleasure of God, for basically attaining the pleasure of Allah. And that should ultimately be the motive for every single Muslim. And this is something I think as viewers as well, we should all bear in mind, that this is something which, that's the highest, that you can be at, where you do good, not out of fear of hellfire or to be punished, or, out of your own desire for paradise and the bounties therein, but to solely and wholly for the sake and pleasure of, the pleasure of Allah the Almighty.
Harisab, Jazakallah to you as well, and as was the case with the previous 2 contestants, we wish you all the best. Hopefully, inshallah, maybe we will see you at the end of the program. Jazakumullah, assalamu alaikum. Tahir Wadood Sahib from Canada is with us on the line. Tahir Sahib, assalamu alaikum. Tahir Sahib, congratulations to you as well. Now, in this program, how much of what the judges told you before in the previous programs have you taken on board? You don't have to say everything, but any good pointers that you took on?
This is the first time I'm experiencing something like this. It's the first time I'm online with this, and with the I think the judges' comments will help me out quite a lot.
All right. Well, good for that. So we're going to listen to your answer that you sent us about today's scenario, and then we're going to come back, and Qasid Sahib is going to ask you the 60-second question. This is Tahir Wadood Sahib from Canada.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. So you know the difference between what is morally right and what is morally wrong. However, until you do not go through divine guidance through religion, you cannot separate the difference between what is morally right and what is morally wrong. For instance, in the Western society, there is a common issue going on with same-sex relationships. Where is the moral right here? Also, they are legalizing drugs and marijuana to become more and more part of the law. Where is the moral value here? They are killing thousands of people on the earth, in Western, in the Middle East, and in other parts of the world. Where is the human justice here? Religion is so important because it teaches us fairness, justice, and equality amongst all people and all nations of the world, and it teaches us to be fair and kind to our human beings. Now, once a prisoner asked his ISIS captor for a copy of the Holy Quran. Now, the ISIS captor told him that we have no single copy of the Holy Quran with us because we've never read the Holy Quran. How can you differentiate between moral rights and moral wrongs if you have not read a word of God yourself? Once the Holy Prophet ﷺ, he asked his people to join him in his religion. But the people came back strongly and said, what is the moral value here? We do not want to accept you, we want to accept our forefathers, and we see that there is nothing wrong about it. But the people that did accept the Holy Prophet, may peace and blessings of Allah be upon him, their names are written in our history books in golden words. The promised Messiah ﷺ has said that there are two aspects to religion. One are the duties towards God, and two are God's creations. Religion does both. So in the end, if you do not differentiate between moral rights and moral wrongs, and you do not go through divine guidance of true religion, you will yourself create interpretation that might lead to chaos and instability that the world may see today.
All right, Tahir Wadud Sahib from Canada. Qasid Sahib, you have the honor of asking him the 60-second question.
Jazakumullah, Raza Sahib, and I do feel very honored. Tahir Sahib, Assalamu alaikum warahmatullah.
Wa alaikum assalam warahmatullah.
Tahir Sahib, mashallah, you gave some very interesting points. You gave a very good answer. You spoke about how moral rights are confused around the world, which is very good. You spoke towards the end of how there can be chaos and instability if there is no set, code of conduct or, a uniformed sort of morals throughout the world, which is very good because morals, like you've said, can vary from, place to place. I wanted to ask, you mentioned something about a journalist, I'm sure you were referring to, and how he was kept captive by an ISIS captor, and how that person was asked about and inquired about the Holy Quran, whether he had it or not. And you said that, in your words, you said, how can you differentiate between what is morally right and wrong if you have never read the Holy Quran? I didn't understand how this linked in with the question. Could you elaborate on this a bit more?
Yeah, so God Almighty has mentioned many rights and many wrongs in the Holy Quran. Now, when you read the Holy Quran, there are certain rules that you should follow and certain rules that you should not follow. So, if you do not read God's words, then how do you know what God is exactly saying? How do you know what religion truly is? Like I mentioned before, you cannot go through divine guidance until you know what is morally right and you know what is morally wrong. So if God is giving a command, the society has the right that it needs to give an answer to it. The society has a right that it needs to give right to it. This is God's right. This is what the Masih is also saying, that there are dues towards God's right and His creation. But if you deny God's commands, then you will. That's where the chaos starts to come. And so everything that the rule, everything that is mentioned is all in the Quran. The Quran also says we hear and we obey. So as whatever we hear from God, whatever we hear from His Prophet is what we should also obey.
Jazakallah Tahir Sahib, you spoke very well. You had a lot of confidence in what you said. This answer, maybe my fellow judges can enlighten me a bit more. I still don't understand how it fits into this question because of the very fact that the person who's asking the question is an atheist. So when you give the example of the Holy Quran and their teachings, that person may not, be able to relate to that. That person wants to hear how the Holy Quran has given you morality. You can say that's sort of giving an example. It's an interesting one, but the thing is that this still does not prove to the person in question how the Holy Quran has given the perfect source of guidance and the perfect source of morality. Perhaps if you could have given an example more towards this aspect, that would have been a bit better. But otherwise, I thought, apart from this, I think this example, if it does let you down, I'm just going to say that if it does let you down, I think it was this example that let you down. Otherwise, your start and end was very good. And I think some of the examples that you gave were very good as well.
What was up? Is it going to let him down?
I would agree with Qasid Sahib that I particularly like the last part of his answer, where he started making the point that if you yourself interpret the morals without the guidance of religion and without the guidance of an all-knowing, omniscient God, then you are bound to make mistakes. And then you can never interpret morals correctly without the guidance of God. Yeah. So this point was very good, very valid, and he could have interpreted this point further and actually made his answer very, very effective. But I agree with Qasir Sahib that in the beginning the examples that he gave were a bit less pertinent to the scenario which was given. But anyhow, Tahir Sahib was, it was the first time that he was participating in the contest, and he has reached the semi-finals, which is a very, very promising thing. And inshallah, hopefully, he will continue to be a very, very good participant in the program, even in future as well. Hopefully.
Amr Sahib, do you think we're going to talk to Tahir Sahib at the end? That's a bit too direct, isn't it?
He came back really strong. I was impressed by him. The question that Qasir Sahib asked, he came back, he's like a steam train. So I was very impressed. And I think the judges have already covered the content part. We always say there's 3 categories, conviction and delivery. So I'll focus on conviction and delivery. And I think in conviction and delivery, he is a very strong candidate. I mean, content has been covered by them, as I said. He has that kind of, I don't know if it's Canadian way of speaking is the right way to say it. I know you have links with Canada as well. So, I mean, he has this very nice and soothing and gentle way of speaking, which helps the person to listen. And his conviction was good as well. So I believe in that sense, he's very strong.
I take that as a compliment for the Canadian people. Tahir Sahib, so do you. I think there's no harm in smiling and laughing a little bit. So Tahir Sahib, Jazakumullah Ahsan to you as well. And let's see, maybe we come back to you in just a few minutes. Our last Khuddam for today's first semi-final. We're going to come back to Europe here, to Ireland. Yusuf Pender Sahib is with us on the line. Yusuf Sahib, Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
First of all, you know that people love the Irish accent. I'm one of them. So that, big plus points before we come to your video. But how difficult or how easy was it for you to come up with the answer for this?
It's always difficult to put the answer into 3 minutes because you don't know what's in the mind of the person. In the question, it's supposed to be an atheist, but there's so much material which the Jamaat presents, and it's just very difficult to collate it in 3 minutes. But I did my best.
So that means, Amr Sahib, Yusuf Sahib did cover a lot of that Jamaat material. We're going to listen to his reply, and then we're going to be back with the 60-second question, which is Amr Sahib going to be. Yusuf Pender Sahib from Ireland. Here we go.
When we talk about the subject of morality, really first we have to decide what is it that morality means. Does morality mean simply to do good or do the right thing? Actually, when we use the word morality, morality has 2 aspects. It has the outer aspect, of course, which is that what you do, but it also has the inner aspect of that which you believe or that which you intend. So, for example, if we look at society today, people follow rules and laws and regulations, even though sometimes they would rather not do it. I suppose one example is when you have to pay your tax. So if you do an action because of fear of the state, which you would rather not do it internally, this cannot be called a moral action. The founder of the community which I belong to, the Ahmadiyya Muslim community, the promised Messiah, Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad of Qadian, peace be upon him, he has written on this topic extensively. And just one point from his writings where he says that there is no criminal who fears the authorities equally by night as by day, because he's under the cover of darkness. And that is why you will find that most crimes are committed by night. So you have to have an inward philosophy or belief which belies your action for it to be a moral action. I suppose the second point is that who decides what is moral? What is moral tends to differ from culture to culture, from society to society, and also throughout time. So, for example, if you look at something which was considered highly immoral 30 years ago, today it's considered to be moral. Do we just say that the consensus of human beings, they decide what is moral, or the state decides what is moral? Well, we look at, there's been many movements throughout the years around the world trying to reform human beings and how they interact with one another. And a lot of them have been very authoritarian, and they're trying to force their idea of what is moral and what is right action from the top down. But we always see that a time comes when their authority crumbles and the people cast them off. That is because they were not doing something because they had the inward desire to do good and obey the laws, but because the people were forcing them. And even actually, if we look at society today, as it is so technologically advanced, but yet morality has fallen off a cliff. We might even say we could draw a direct graph between the way that society has advanced and the decline of morality. So clearly societal advancement is not an answer to the moral question. I suppose the next point is that where does morality come from? Whenever you hear the word morality, throughout time, every culture, you will find that that is synonymous with the word God and the word religion. Because throughout time, people have believed that God came and he taught inward spiritual teachings which belie then the moral laws which he has revealed to humankind through prophets. And really we can think of morality as, in the sense then holistically, like a tree. So the roots are the moral, the spiritual teachings, and then the trunk and the branches are the moral actions, and the fruit is the virtuous society. And so we really need the underlying philosophy, which we have found tried and tested throughout human history, only comes from belief in God.
All right, that was Yusuf Pendersab from Ireland. Amr Sab, 60-second question. Looking at the time, if I can request all the judges afterwards as well to keep the comments short, please.
Yusuf Sab, assalamu alaikum.
What, sir?
Apparently the Irish accent is better than the Canadian accent, according to Rosa Sab. But
I'm not on that side.
But aside from that, Yusuf, Jazakallah for your answer. I feel you touched some really important points. My 60-second question for you is that, again, we talk about this question, everyone answering on face value. If someone were to ask this, what is actually religion offering? What's the foremost thing? And we would say that the foremost thing is that, first of all, that connection with God. I want you to focus on this for 60 seconds, that if someone were to say, why do we need to believe in religion if we can still have morals? I want you to focus the aspect of what you get by establishing a connection with God, because that may help to answer the question for the person asking this. So you have 60 seconds starting now.
I think when you have a connection with God, I mean, there's the psychological aspect of having the idea in your mind that there is a greater reason why you're doing something. So, for example, it mentions in the Holy Quran that if you do a good action, you will have many times the reward, and if you do a bad action, you will have the like thereof as a punishment. So there's the concept of incentive, and as human beings, even as children, we obey our parents because we know that we'll get punished if we don't do right, and if we do right, then we'll get some reward. But as we grow older, we realize we should do things because they're intrinsically good and stay away from things because they're intrinsically bad. So religion teaches us also that there is a reward in this world and in the next world if you do good, and there's a punishment in this world and the next world if you do bad. And I say a reward because, for example, if somebody commits an immoral action, let's say illicit relations or something like that, it has the bad effect that it destroys their home and it destroys their health. Whereas
your time is up. We're going to mute out your voice. So I should have maybe mentioned that in the beginning. But Amr Sab, so far so good, no?
Yusuf, yes, you answered very well. You touched on some key points. I like the way you explained about morals. I like the fact that you connected it with God at the end, even before your second answer. That was a strong point. And one thing I'll just add very quickly, we're talking about Hazur's sermons. And when Hazur was recently in Europe, in Jalsa Salana, Holland, he addressed the Dutch guests and he spoke about outer and inner peace. And this relates directly to this question, and perhaps the contestants haven't touched on this. You may, for argument's sake, be able to morally be good. That's also, I say for argument's sake, because if we look in the world now, that's not happening. But let's take for argument's sake, a person or a country is acting morally good. That doesn't necessarily equate to having inner peace, which everyone is looking for today. And this is what Hazur said in his speech, that despite the huge materialistic progress, despite people having wealth, despite people having all the riches that they could possibly want, they're feeling anxious inside. And it's the same in the developing countries where they don't have the materialistic possessions. They're also feeling anxiety inside. Mental health problems are on the rise, depression is on the rise, suicide is on the rise. Take Japan for an example. It has some of the most advanced technology. They have amazing etiquettes. People who've been to Japan is famous for having very good etiquettes. People have very good standards of, you can say, morals. Okay. However, suicide rates are very high. So therefore, there's something missing, and that's that inner peace, and that's that connection with God. So this is, apart from answering the question about morals, we should also connect it with God.
We're also missing time, so Qasas, 1 minute, very short.
Very briefly, just like Amr Sahab said, they say there's been a process of evolution of the brain, and human intellect has reached a stage where now we should be able to process everything, and we should be able to live, well, some say without religion and just through morals. But one interesting way of looking at it is that the Promised Messiah came just over 100 years ago, and he gave, although the teachings of Islam obviously are complete, but he completed the promulgation and propagation of Islam through his writings, through his literature and the explanations and the various commentaries that he's done. The world has not accepted that. And one interesting way of looking at it is how the human intellect, or the brain, has evolved to such a level where it should have by now, grasped that message and understood that message, or at least heard that message. And the reason why perhaps there is so much frustration is because that message of Islam, the message of the Promised Messiah ﷺ, has not reached them just yet. And when they do reach, when they get to that,
purposely not accepted it.
or purposely not accepted it, or purposely, or maybe not have necessarily understood it. Once they understand that, it will be on par with human intellect, or the stage of human intellect that we are with right now.
Jazakumullah Ahsan. Muhammad Sahib, you don't mind if I skip you and go to the next VT? Yusuf, Jazakumullah Ahsan. Thank you very much for being with us, and good luck to you as well. Hopefully, maybe we will talk to you in just a few seconds. Before we give out the results, and in the meantime, we're going to compile the results. There's a short VT that we would like to show you of the participants who unfortunately could not make it to the third season of Face to Face. Here we go.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Feroz Khan. The topic I have given to speak about is, if a friend who is not religious asks, even if I believe that there is a God, then how do I know that he controls the world? So the answer is very simple, that if you are controlling something, then of course you will know how it's working. Now I am presenting you a verse, a holy verse from Surah Anbiya, that have those who disbelieved not considered that the heavens and the earth were a joint entity, and we separated them and made from water every living thing, then will they not believe?
So if you look at the complexity of the universe, we can realize that Earth is very complex, even the universe is very complex in its creation. So there must be a creator, there must be an intelligent being who has created the universe. And I will present the two evidences that will point to the existence of the God.
God is the creator and he is controlling the world. Let me tell you an example, that the amazing phenomenal system of our universe, in which our Earth is at the distance of approximately 93 million miles from the Sun, having a diameter of 7,900 miles itself. The Sun is having a diameter of 865,000 miles itself. Stars, galaxies, and other things in the planet all are orbiting and moving in a perfect system and in a path. How can it be possible as a coincidence? No, not at all. There is someone, and there must be someone who is controlling it.
All right, Jazakumullah to the contestants as well, and the result for the first semi-finals are out as well. Yusuf Pender Sahib and Haris Parvez Sahib, they have made it to the final. So Yusuf Pender Sahib from Ireland and Haris Parvez Sahib from Germany. Congratulations, barakallah to both of you. Inshallah, we're going to be seeing you in 2 weeks' time when we are in the grand final. Jazakumullah to the judges as well, Amr Sahib, Mohammad Zahid Sahib and Qasid Sahib. Thank you very much. I know you have the most difficult job. I'm just here to talk. So, and thank you very much to the Khuddam at home as well. And thank you very much, of course, to you at home who are watching. Inshallah, we're going to be back with you next week, same time here on MTA, Sunday at 7 p.m. Live. And don't forget, 24 hours before the program, so on Saturday evening, the videos are uploaded onto the website. Go to www.mta.tv/face-to-face, and you can look at those videos in your own free time and cast your votes accordingly. Thank you very much for joining us today. Inshallah, we're going to be back with you next week. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
In exactly the same way that the Holy Prophet ﷺ knew that what God is telling me is the truth. He never stopped preaching. And in the same way, we won't stop preaching.
It's against the teaching of Islam to force anyone into belief, which is la ikraha fi din. There's no compulsion in matters of faith.